It's crunch time. Week 7 during the bipocalypse. That's the definition of crunch time. And we are here to help you make those crunch time decisions. I'm your host, Tim, of course, and the man, the myth, the legend, one of the best follows on Twitter that there is, and one of the best guys there is, just in general. Mr. Themi, what's good, man? At Gridiron Greek, of course.
What's going on, Tim? Glad to be here.
I love that he put. So I've been making fun of Themi for a while now that he looks like Zordon in his background because he's like, and now he's got Zordon in his background.
I should probably get rid of that. It looks awful right now.
Nah, I love it. It looks very meta. There he is, Zordon in the flesh. All right, so I mean, we got it's a crazy week because it's bipocalypse. So I'm anticipating. We were just talking about this right before we got on. We're anticipating a lot of like Darrell Henderson questions, a lot of Royce Freeman, a lot of Zach Evans. So I mean, before we get into that, Alex, what up, Alex? Joining us bright and early. As always, we always appreciate the patronage, and we hope we can continue to help you out, man. Get those questions in, everyone. Remember the crunch time guarantee. Although as we wait for, like, I feel like I'm a teacher right now. Like as we wait for the class to populate in the 5-minute like in between third and fourth period. It's our first Henderson question right off the bat. So I mean, before we get into this, like, how are you looking at this situation in general? That's going to inform our answers to questions like this that Alex has of Hendo or Warren half point PPR.
Well, I think the first thing is looking at what the other options are and just making sure there's not a clear stud. I mean, that's just obvious. That's not something that, I've invented, obviously. But, just looking at Alex's question really quick, Henderson or Warren, I think the main thing is going to be that the Rams are favored by about 3.5 at home against the Steelers. Might not be that many Rams fans compared to Steelers fans, in LA. Steelers fans travel well. But I think just kind of banking on the game script is going to be one of the bigger things here. But I do think that from reports that I've seen, Henderson looks like he may still be getting the majority of the volume. And if you might just want to save yourself a headache and just not start one of these guys unless you're really, really desperate.
So here's my like outlook on the whole thing, because I'm kind of in the situation. I'm running back needy. I have Najee Harris starting. I got Derrick Henry on bye, and I have Najee Harris, my other running back, who's been, you can't bank on a ceiling from him ever. So I need an RB2. Right now I have Devontae Foreman, who is starting for the Bears this week with a backup quarterback playing, but I also have Darrell Henderson on the bench. So I have that decision to make of Foreman versus Henderson. For me, I'm gonna go with a guy like Foreman, because I want to go with the volume. But with that being said, I will say two things about this current Rams situation. Number one, if you picked up Zach Evans for a whole bunch of fab and you feel like you have to play Zach Evans now because you dropped all that fab, don't. You're just going to perpetuate what is bad about spending that fab in the first place. So like it's just two losses don't make a win. So I think with the reports that are coming out, Schefter earlier today said that it's going to be Henderson and it's going to be Freeman in the backfield and it's going to be some Zach Evans worked in. With that being one of the things on the agenda, and look, you can only trust reports so much. But I think there is something to be said about that. Zach Evans is a rookie. He hasn't played much, and Darrell Henderson knows the system. They went out and they signed Darrell Henderson. They signed Myles Gaskin. They activated Royce Freeman from the practice squad. You don't need to activate 4 running backs if you have confidence in your rookie running back to take the helm. And he was after Ronnie Rivers, right? It's not like Ronnie Rivers is some big drafted prospect. Like he was, in Sean McVay's estimation, not as good as Ronnie Rivers, right? So Sean McVay goes out and gets these guys. So if you're desperate, if it's one of those situations where you need a play, you must have a play, I'm playing Darrell Henderson of the bunch, personally. In my rankings this morning, I went in and I switched it. I had Zach Evans as all the way up as high as running back 25 earlier today. That is not the case anymore. Zach Evans is all the way down at running back 49 now. And when it came to who's going to take that spot, who's going to make up a little bit of that work, I'm putting Darrell Henderson. He's my RB 29 at the moment. So if I'm looking at my rankings right now, which I am, that's how I'm feeling. So someone who you can play in a flex, take a shot on. I'm playing him over guys like Latavius Murray and maybe I'm not. Maybe I wouldn't play him over Latavius Murray, to be honest. Now that I'm looking at it, I'd play Keontae Ingram over him. I'd play Latavius Murray over him. I'd play Jeff Wilson Jr. over him. But yeah, I think when it comes to the other guys, the part-time guys that aren't going to get any work, like Tyler Algier, Zeke, AJ Dillon, Justice Hill, even a guy like Craig Reynolds, who's in a similar spot. Like, I'm preferring Darrell Henderson in those situations just because he's done it before. So that's basically how we're looking at that. So now that we've done that, now that we've given you that context, let's get into these questions. Remember the crunch time guarantee. Every single question you have will be answered. This is the first week in a minute that there's not a game going on while we're on this.
Yeah, that's actually really comforting because having to switch between this and the game would have been like a nightmare. Like, I would want to have it on the side right here and just kind of like look off to this.
We've perfected that because we have to be on Monday nights. On Thursday nights we have to record. There's no other option besides Thursday nights. So it's like we have to play while there's a game on. We've gotten good at it. All right, let's go to the first game though. Hendo or Warren, says Alex Show. By the way, good morning. Jake from IT, good morning, brother. So we're gonna get to all these questions, of course. Hendo or Warren, what do you think? Who are you leaning here? I know you touched on it already, but if you had to play one, who are you playing?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Darrell Henderson here. I mean, Alex also clarifies that he's also playing Najee. It's not impossible to get value out of these guys playing side by side. You're just already getting a very limited ceiling for both of them. Warren offers a pretty decent floor. He's usually good for about 8 to 10 points in maybe PPR leagues. Maybe in half it goes down to about 6 to 8. But I feel like that's such a replaceable number. He's not getting that much volume. He's getting maybe 8 carries a game. He does get a decent amount of looks at in terms of targets. But man, I feel like Henderson might give you as good a floor. And he's a very big home run hit. The Steelers are below average against the run. They're not like stopping it like crazy. So, at home with the spread in their favor, a great offense that's getting even better with Cooper Kupp back, I think I'd rather just take a shot on Henderson. He's probably going to get to double-digit carries. And even if he doesn't, I don't think Warren's hitting like that big of a ceiling this week.
So what you mentioned about the Steelers being a good matchup, the Steelers line 21.6 points per game. Also, if you don't already, I think everyone that's watching right now has it. But if you don't have the Fantasy Football by Brodo app already, go check that out. And one of the best tools is defensive points. True matchup rankings, formerly known as defensive points over average. That's because we tell you how much, what percentage of points the defense scores over the average points allowed of the players that they've actually played. So not just against the entire league where you have overall, this is how many rushing yards they've given up. If you face Christian McCaffrey and if you face when Dalvin Cook was the starting running back for the Jets, like those two guys shouldn't match up equally, and they don't in this ranking. So it's adjusted. And the Steelers are the 10th best matchup, particularly on the ground. They've given up 26% point over average, although they've been good against the receiving running back, which is interesting. This is an interesting play for me because I think that you can't start Najee and Jaylen Warren. And with that being said, I said earlier on the podcast that I believe that Jaylen Warren might be the guy this week. I really think that there's a chance that coming out of the bye week, a struggling offense, you get Deontay Johnson back. So that adds a little dimension, a new dimension to the passing game. I think that there's some changes that need to be made. And one of the changes could be this inefficient plotter that's happening right now with Najee Harris, although he has been slightly better on a per carry basis than Jaylen Warren. I think that there's a chance that there's a changing of the guard this week. So call me crazy, but I'm considering, if I'm Alex, playing Hendo and Warren and no Najee, because I don't think you could start two Steelers, and I think the Steeler to play this week is Warren, even though like Najee and Warren are higher in my rankings than Hendo and Warren are.
Yeah, I don't hate that play. It's definitely a risk. It really depends on what you're looking for. It's worth noting that Najee actually has been breaking off some pretty decent runs. He has, I believe, 6 runs of 15 or more yards, which is tied for the third most in the league. That being said, he doesn't gain that much on the yards that aren't on those carries. Um, it's usually for like he gets stopped. Uh, does not look that great to be honest. Warren looks a lot fresher, a lot younger. He's smaller, so he's more, I guess, agile and able to kind of evade those defenders. So I don't necessarily hate it. I do wonder if Warren's going to get like goal line carries because I don't really know if he has. I got to check that right now. Um, I think it's a risky move. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable doing it by myself, but it's not like a league losing move. I don't think Najee's getting like 20 points this week.
It's definitely outside the box thinking.
Yeah.
I'll say that 100%. Definitely outside the box thinking. All right. So let's get into the next question here. As I get to the questions. Yep, here we go. Jake, Rashee Rice or Jordan Addison, half point PPR. I think right off the bat, I'm leaning Jordan Addison here. I think that Rashee Rice, while he has been putting up some decent numbers, I think it's important to note that even last week, Rashee Rice only played 50% of the snaps, got less than 10% of the target share, 35 snaps. He had 4 targets, so when he's on the field, he gets targeted. But this offense spreads the ball around. If you don't get a touchdown from Rashee, there's a chance that you're going to be really disappointed. On the other side, you have a guy who's literally on the field every single snap. Last week without Justin Jefferson for the first time, let's go right here. Jordan Addison was on the field for 86% of snaps. Okay, but not all right. So not every single snap, but the majority of snaps. Got the majority of targets in the offense. 5 targets overall in the offense. This is a guy who scored a touchdown last week. Was basically the main target. Him and KJ Osborne kind of split. Now this is a matchup against San Francisco, who they're a great defense, and everyone always talks about how great they are. But there is one thing that they allow, and that's wide receiver points. And this is something that goes back to last season. They're right about league average when it comes to average when it comes to letting up points. So basically what the person averages, that's what they get against the 49ers. They're right in the middle of the league, 15th. And that matchup has improved by 7 points as the year has gone on. So the 49ers have been allowing wide receivers to do work against them. You saw Amari Cooper be able to put in work against the Niners last week. So, I'm not scared of the matchup here for Jordan Addison, and I'm going to go with Jordan Addison in this head-to-head.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Addison as well. This Chiefs-Chargers game is probably going to be the highest scoring. It's, I believe, projected to be the highest scoring at about 53 and a half last I checked. But at the same time, you're basically saying, do I want like a mid piece of a high-scoring game when it's probably going to be like very clustered, or I guess condensed to a few players? I mean, that's easier to see on the Chargers for sure than the Chiefs, who kind of need a wide receiver that is going to stand out. But it seems like they're just going to spread the ball around again, feed Travis Kelce, and maybe have like one guy who maybe goes off, but maybe doesn't catch a touchdown. They could still run the ball pretty well. Jordan Addison, yeah, he does have a tough matchup, but like you said, they're a little susceptible. I'm looking at DVOA right now, and they actually split it between wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. And while the 49ers are still very good, against wide receiver 1s, they're much better against the 2s and the 3s and tight ends. Like you said, Amari Cooper last week, he was just breaking off big chunk plays with PJ Walker there. I don't think it would be absurd to see Kirk Cousins get him, 11 fantasy points in half PPR. Rashee Rice, I think he's going to need like that big blow up game to come close to Addison's like mid performance.
Yeah, I agree. And the app also agrees. Just for the record, we'll be double checking everything on the app as we use our rankings are involved in the algorithm in the app of the app. But for the start sit, but also we have outside factors. I'm not going to go into exactly what outside factors is, but it's not just like who do us 4 think are going to be the best starts. It's a lot of outside factors that go into this, and it gives a really holistic start sit, including the players' matchups and taking that into consideration. And right now, Jordan Addison, 78% in favor to start in a half PPR and an 84% favorable start in full PPR. So just like me and Themi were talking about, I think the app is also on the same page there. All right, let's get into the next one. Jake from IT. Absolutely vile decision to make. Have Henry on a bye and Kai on IR. I feel you, brother. Me too. I have to start two different running backs: Foreman, Ford, McLaughlin, Elijah Mitchell, or do I grab Darrell Henderson? Half point PPR. I'm gonna let you start this one off. How are you feeling? How would you approach this?
I think we kind of touched on a couple of these players before in the beginning before we started answering questions, and you said that you were probably starting Deontay Foreman, over a lot of these guys in the Rams backfield. Um, I think Deontay Foreman should slide in nicely into most lineups this week. Probably going to be a very run-heavy game on both sides of the ball. Not necessarily just because the quarterbacks are bad. Jimmy Garoppolo and Justin Fields are out. Which makes it less ideal. Perhaps you might see a little more passing out of the Bears, than the designed runs and stuff like that. But man, these are two awful defenses. The Raiders are like not the absolute worst. They're not the Panthers, not the Broncos, they're not the Bears, but they are a lot more susceptible on the ground than they are through the air. I think the Bears could absolutely take advantage of that. Deontay Foreman has shown us that he can, have big breakout games. And then I really don't feel comfortable starting a guy like Jaleel McLaughlin or Elijah Mitchell over Darrell Henderson or Jerome Ford. We know Jerome Ford is probably going to be a starter-ish kind of player. We know Kareem Hunt was getting quite a bit of work last week. I think he'll still be in the mix, at Indianapolis this week. But Jerome Ford could be a pretty decent volume play. However, I think what I'm going to do here is grab Darrell Henderson absolutely, just so nobody else has him. And I'd probably start him, to be honest, over Jerome Ford.
Over Jerome Ford, huh?
Yeah, it's close for me. It's pretty close. I think it's between those three guys, Foreman, Ford, and Henderson. And I think Foreman is going to be the auto start, quote unquote.
Yeah. I think
it's tough.
I think me and you are on the same page in terms of I think Deontay Foreman is the guy you got to start here. I think that he has a good matchup against Las Vegas, and he has the guaranteed workload, and they're going to be leaning on the run because they got the rookie doing his thing. So I think that Deontay Foreman is the guy. Now, when it comes to Jerome Ford, Jaleel McLaughlin, Elijah Mitchell, and Darrell Henderson, if CMC wasn't playing, then I would say Elijah Mitchell. But I will say this. There was a report just now, just like I literally just got it to my phone, that Adam Schefter reported that CMC is on track to play on Monday. Now, there is something to be said about San Francisco and their lying ways, all right? Because they said Debo's going to be fine, and yesterday we found out he has a broken shoulder. Thanks. But yeah, so we've got that situation, so I'm going to lean away from Elijah Mitchell. So that leaves me with, let's see who we got here. Jaleel McLaughlin, who I get where you're coming from, but he's more of a deeper play. So that leaves Jerome Ford versus Darrell Henderson, and I got to lean Jerome Ford here. I mean, Jerome Ford has been the guy. Now, Kareem Hunt did see a whole bunch of snaps last week, which has to concern you. But Jerome Ford still had a good game, and Jerome Ford still put in work. Watson is hurt. This is a defense and running type team. I think Jerome Ford is guaranteed to get you at least 15 touches. And when I look at these guys, I'm going to go with the volume. I mean, that's just what you have to do in a situation like this, in my opinion. And I think Foreman and Ford have the most guaranteed volume. I think Henderson has that upside, but we've now talked about Darrell Henderson and what we think about Darrell Henderson for a minute now. There's no guarantee that it's going to be him. Who knows if he's even in game shape enough to get 15 carries. I think if you had to put lines, because you are the betting guy, Themi. By the way, if you didn't check it out already, Brodo Bets, Themi always doing his thing on that. Deontay Foreman, Jerome Ford. Like if you had to put this in order of probable touches, I think that's going to be the order of start. I'm going to put this in. So I think the order of probable touches goes Foreman, Ford, McLaughlin, Henderson, Mitchell in terms of guaranteed touches, and you could switch McLaughlin and Henderson. But I'm going to go with the guaranteed touches if I don't have to be super, super desperate and start Darrell Henderson. That's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I think you've started to sell me on Ford a little bit. And the more you look at him and you see his game logs, like he did very well against the 49ers last week. Obviously, a lot of flukiness in that game, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he performed quite well and the team as a whole on offense performed quite well with PJ Walker. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, whether or not he plays, um, Kevin Stefanski likes to run the ball quite a lot, regardless of game script. He's not quite as um, I guess, inelastic as, say, Arthur Smith or Mike Vrabel, who, Arthur Smith learned it from Mike Vrabel, where they just kind of run even when they're losing a lot, which you can find in the coaching section of the Broto app. Um, yeah, I think Jerome Ford is pretty set for about 15 touches. The Colts are about 12th in true matchup rank, so they're a pretty decent matchup against running backs. His worst games basically came against the Titans, who are excellent against the run. You want to pass over them. That's what they did. And the Ravens, who are overall one of the best defenses in the league. So, going against the 49ers, another great defense, and actually performing shows that he can absolutely do it. And I think in a game where they're not underdogs by, about 10 points, with possibly Deshaun Watson coming back, which might, give him a little more upside. Maybe don't necessarily need to lean on him every single play as much, but yeah, okay. I think I'll do Foreman and Ford too.
It is strange that we don't know what's going on with Watson quite yet.
Yeah, it's
Like it's a
clear to
little late.
play, and then he doesn't play, and
Yeah, it's a little late, man. Come on, let's get us together. Like, who's gonna be your starting quarterback? The chess moves of coaches, I get it, and I would do it probably if I was a coach too.
yeah.
But it sucks for fantasy, man. What's up with that? All right, let's go on to Dominic Martin. Good morning, Dominic, our guy, always part of the Crunch Time family, always part of the Brodo family. What's up, Brodo? You guys feeling Alexander Madison, Jameer Gibbs, McLaurin, Scary Terry, or Jacoby Myers? I need to start three of them. I was gonna say, you gotta make a decision on one of these guys. Jeez. But yeah, I think for me, the clear sit here is McLaurin. Madison, although he hasn't been getting the volume, I think that, again, they're going to need to lean on him more and more. You saw him lean. Madison's been an RB2 or better every single week. I guess it's because his draft price got so high that people are kind of down on him, but I like Madison. I love Jameer Gibbs' opportunity. When your coach comes out and says, we're going to have to lean on you this week, yeah, okay, give me that. Last time he was alone in the backfield, 17 touches. Now, he didn't have the greatest fantasy game, but he still has 17 touches, and that's something that you have to consider. So I think Jameer Gibbs is an auto start for me if I have Jameer Gibbs. Alexander Madison is someone I'm very comfortable with starting. And Jacoby Myers has been an absolute target machine, wide receiver one in points per game so far this year. There's no way you can sit Jacoby Myers. No way. That's just crazy. That's just not good advice. So, Scary Terry's been up and down. It's been a hard offense to count on in Washington. So I'm going to say Madison, Gibbs, and Myers. How are you feeling?
It's a little closer for me. I do really like McLaurin. Obviously, the pass catchers on that team in Washington are just not living up to expectations. I think a lot of people maybe were expecting Terry McLaurin to take a step back. Maybe a little bit overhyped or maybe just underutilized on this team. The talent is clearly there. The Giants are a great spot to finally utilize Terry McLaurin and kind of expect a big game.
I will say the Giants have a rookie cornerback. I'm blanking on his name, but he's been playing fantastic in that secondary, and I'm just putting it out there, like their secondary with him added. He's got like PFF has having them ranked over Sauce at this point last year, according to some dude on WFAN. But I didn't vet that, but according to him, that's the case. And I think that when you have a guy playing like that, that does make a big difference in terms of the passing game. But go ahead.
Are you talking about Trey Hawkins the third? Maybe it's Trey Hawkins the second. Maybe they got all three of them on there. He is a late round rookie who is starting at corner for them. Absolutely. Regardless, yeah, it's been underwhelming to roster and start these guys, especially Jahan Dotson, someone who had a pretty decent season last year as a rookie and really just isn't getting anything. I mean, very up or down. sophomore slump, or maybe Sam Howell just doesn't like him, or he's just not good enough. Curtis Samuel getting back in the mix. Logan Thomas having a bit of a resurgence as a low end tight end two, or high end tight end two, I guess low end tight end one. Having weeks comparable to that. Just really confusing. Matchup favors McLaurin. Jacoby Myers has a backup quarterback. Well, it is a rookie, Aiden O'Connell, AOC, the senator, or what is your representative? Starting at a quarterback. But yeah, I just can't justify benching Jacoby Myers. He looks great, man.
Yeah.
The Patriots letting him go was such a big mistake. Yeah, I mean, I would give Terry McLaurin one more week on the bench, and if he can show out here, I would start to trust him a little more in my lineup. But if he can't do it here, I'm just losing hope at this point. So I think I'm going with you with Madison, Gibbs, Myers, but I do have a little more hope for McLaurin than maybe you do.
Charles, happy week 7, everyone. Happy week 7, Charles. Let's see if we can help you out here. Got to start 2 running backs, full PPR, Rachaad White, Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte Williams. This is a tough one. I'm definitely going to go to my rankings here to see where I have these guys ranked. So I do like myself some Rachaad White, although he hasn't been great. He's been catching passes. I have him ranked as RB21 in this matchup against Atlanta. I have Javonte Williams as running back 19. I have Ramondre Stevenson up at running back 16. And let's see. Yeah, that's where it is. So, I mean, according to my rankings, I would sit White in this situation. But my heart, even though my ranking says that, as I looked into it and did it all, did all the crunching of numbers. My heart, though, says that I would play Rachaad White over Javonte Williams. So my ranking says Ramondre and Javonte. My heart says Rachaad and Ramondre. How are you feeling about this?
I'm actually like really out on Ramondre Stevenson. The Bills aren't the most elite run defense in the league. They're actually pretty average in terms of fantasy points allowed in true matchup rank. That being said, man, they just can't get anything going in the run game. I mean, not that the passing game is any better, but facing the Buffalo Bills, you're about 8.5-point underdogs. I wouldn't be that shocked to see Bill Belichick pull something out of his ass and just kind of make someone a stud on offense this week. But man, I'm going. I think Rachaad White is a start for me pretty easily. Against the Atlanta Falcons, they are pretty tough on defense. Bucks are 2.5-point favorites at home. I don't think the game script is necessarily going to be that great, but I think his ceiling is pretty nice. He could get to 20 points. Floor not amazing, but his floor is about the same as Ramondre's in my opinion. And then you're looking at Javonte in a game where both teams are probably going to run the ball, run the actual heck out of the ball, especially if Aaron Jones is back. Broncos are a terrible defense, so I don't think the game script will necessarily favor him all the time. But the Packers aren't that great against the run either. And I'm kind of trusting Javonte to get back, keep getting, healthier and stuff, and, look a lot better than he did, at the beginning of the season. I mean, I don't think he was that bad post-injury, but this is about the time when you start to really hope to see them recover from these kinds of really bad season-ending injuries. I would bench Ramondre Stevenson here and probably regret it. But
yeah, that is a large balls take. I will say that after he did have an RB6 finish last week. Ramondre Stevenson. I see where you're coming from. To be mentioned, the Bills have been about league average, 9% over average to the running backs. They're the 14th best true matchup rank, and in terms of the running backs receiving, they're the 18th true matchup rank. So right in the middle of the pack, not something to write home about. They did lose Matt Milano. I think that's a big deal on the Bills defense. They're very injured on the defensive side, including Matt Milano. So that's why I'm leaning Stevenson. I do think they're going to lean on him a little bit, and then White. All right, let's go into the next one. This is an interesting one. Jordan Love or Brock Purdy. You don't really get quarterback star questions, but in a Bipocalypse, this is what you're facing. For me personally, Jordan Love is the play here. you know, Brock Purdy's might be missing CMC, although the report is he's going to play. Definitely missing Debo Samuel. Um, did not play super well last week, but you can see that's from that might be from the conditions. The bottom line is I'm playing Jordan Love because of an excellent, phenomenal matchup at Denver. Whether you like it or not, because it's been kind of under the radar, but Jordan Love has been fantastic for fantasy. His finishes QB3, QB16, but even when he put up QB16, he put up 20 fantasy points that week. It was just a good quarterback week. So you love to see that. QB6 against New Orleans, and then week 4, QB14 against Detroit. Obviously fell off against Las Vegas, did not have a good game last week. But when you're looking at the matchup that he's facing, and I'm just pulling up that matchup so I can get all the numbers right now, but I tell you, it's a phenomenal matchup. The Denver Broncos have been a terrible defense. The Denver Broncos are the 5th best matchup ranked. They're giving up 33% over average to the quarterback, particularly through the air, 19.1 points per game. That's the 5th best matchup of anything. So boom, boom. I mean, you got a guy who's been great for fantasy against a matchup that's been great for fantasy. Brock Purdy's more of a floor play. I wouldn't get too cute with it. I'm playing Jordan Love, and I'm loving it this week.
I agree with what you said about Brock Purdy being a floor play. If you're 1 o'clock guys, have all if all your team is 1 o'clock guys except for your quarterback, and you're trying to debate between Brock Purdy and Jordan Love, and you literally just need like 6 points, and that will be your opponent, maybe I'd go Brock Purdy. But even then, like you said, Jordan Love has probably the best matchup in the league. Very, fluky kind of performance last week against the Raiders. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were putting the pressure on him. They were, making some plays, and maybe it was just under the lights. He was just not ready for it, because that was a pretty decent matchup to take advantage of. They're a little bit against the pass than the rush, but regardless, they just did not look good. The Packers. Hopefully, getting Aaron Jones back. It looks like he's on track to play. I don't think there's any real setbacks now, except for a last second kind of inactive like we saw on Monday night last week or Sunday night against the Raiders. I believe that was when the surprise inactive happened. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, we've seen Jordan Love kind of ball out, throw he started this season with, I believe, 2 games with 3 touchdowns, no picks passing. He can take advantage of a terrible matchup. I mean, anyone can. And I don't think that's going to be any different this week. I think he's, set for a QB1 game. I don't think he'll be the QB1, but I think he could get pretty close to that. So yeah, I think Jordan Love might get a slight downgrade if you need a floor play, but I don't think he's going to do as badly as last week or anywhere close to that. So I think they're just going to destroy the Denver Broncos, or at least put up a lot of points against them. And Broncos have a good enough offense to play catch up, like we've seen them week after week after week. And then that's good for Jordan Love to keep passing and be pass happy with Aaron Jones' little safety net too.
All right. Next question, Chris W. Good morning, Chris. Jahmyr Gibbs or Marquise Brown, half PPR flex. That is a wonderful problem to have. Look, for me, I don't know how you sit Hollywood Brown. I know Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a phenomenal opportunity, and maybe I would even consider him playing at RB2 over whoever you have at RB2, because unless you have a bomb squad with no buys, maybe let us know who you have playing at running back, Chris, if you're still on. So let us know you have playing a running back, because I'm playing Marquise Brown no matter what. Right now I have him ranked as my wide receiver 11. I have him ranked as a wide receiver 1, and I think there's 2 reasons for that. Number 1 is because of the opportunity that he's been getting with this team. If you look down at his targets, he had 11 targets in week 6, in week 5, 10 targets in week 4. In week 4, another 10 targets in week. It's just double-digit targets every single week. He's getting the majority of the targets, 27% of the targets on this team all season, and that includes the running back position too. You don't give that up, especially in a matchup against the Seattle Seahawks, who right now the third best matchup rank for wide receivers. 36 points allowed per game. That's 42% over average. I don't know how you sit a guy, because I know that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the guy, but I mean, against Atlanta, when Jahmyr Gibbs had 17 rushes and a catch, so 18 touches, he ended with only 9.2 PPR points, good for RB24. So I mean, although I like Gibbs and I think he's going to have a better game than he did in that game, the touches don't come with guaranteed production. Marquise Brown has been about as guaranteed as you can get from a guy. So I'm not going to pass that up for almost anything. So I'm starting Marquise Brown, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I'm going Marquise Brown here too. Like you said, volume is insane. 4 out of 6 games with at least double-digit targets. Obviously, a bit of a letdown against the Rams last week, but the volume's absolutely there. And yeah, Gibbs has a pretty tough matchup against Baltimore.
Chris is in a good spot. Alvin Kamara and Bijan Robinson.
Oh,
Alvin
wow.
Kamara already got him almost 30 PPR points after that performance. So Kamara,
he's just flexing now.
Yeah, at this point you're just showing off. You got Jahmyr Gibbs on the bench. You gotta tell your league mates, like, yeah, this is the situation. All right. So a deeper one here. Standard scoring. Interesting. Haven't had a standard scoring question in a minute. Curtis Samuel, Cortland Sutton, Tutu Atwell. So, I mean, in standard scoring, you're not looking for the volume play. I think if you're looking for the volume play, it's Curtis Samuel. You're looking for the big play, right? You're looking for the big play opportunity. This is a tough one. Are you leaning anyone here?
Yeah, I think I'm going Cortland Sutton here as like the home run kind of guy. Like you said, Curtis Samuel going to be a volume guy like last year. Low A dot. Not much production. Like, he might be getting a lot of first downs maybe, but that doesn't really help your league unless you get points for that. Cortland Sutton, he's got a touchdown in 4 games. His yardage isn't anything insane, but over someone like Tutu Atwell, I think that's who you got to play. Tutu really competing for targets right now. It's not going to be fun to try to get much going. He might break off a big play, but I'd rather just take a shot on Cortland Sutton scoring a touchdown, even though it is quite random. I think Denver's going to have to keep throwing to stay alive in this one.
All right, so I'm going to the Start Sit app on the Broto app, because I honestly cannot make a decision here. I think that I'm leaning sitting Tutu, and my decision is going to be Cortland Sutton versus Curtis Samuel, because Curtis Samuel has been getting a lot of touches in that offense. All right, let's see. So we got that, and then we got standard. Sutton, Samuel. According to the app, Sutton is a 64.5% favorite in this matchup. In this, so I'm gonna go I'm gonna go with Themi, and I'm gonna go with the app. I'm gonna go with Cortland Sutton in that standard matchup. Let's see. I wonder how that changes with PPR. Yeah, it gets closer to Curtis Samuel as you go more PPR. The gap shrinks every single time. So I think Themi brought it up. Cortland Sutton does have that big play opportunity with a guy who loves to throw rainbow bombs in Russell Wilson. All right, let's get to the next one. Garrett Irwin. What's up, Garrett? G-Rat. Good morning, folks. So we used to have a guy named Garrett on the team, on my baseball team, and every time we'd come up, he'd be like, G-Rat. Well, I did that. Chris W., I'm in a good situation thanks to you guys in the heat wave. Yes, I love to hear it, Chris. That's exactly why we do what we do. All right, so Garrett's question: Rams or Commanders defense today? Ooh, interesting. Let's see what these matchups look like here.
It's worth noting Daniel Jones is out this week, so Tyrod Taylor's going to be starting another week.
I think that's something that is not necessarily a bad thing for the Giants. I think like I mentioned this on the pod, I think Daniel Jones is kind of just like white Tyrod Taylor. Like they're just the same guy. They do the same things. They have the same skill sets. They have kind of like the same ceiling of what they can do. It's just like they really pick the perfect backup quarterback for their quarterback. Like, just here's the exact same human being except a little shorter. Like I that's just my opinion on that. I don't know. The Rams are in a tougher matchup. I still think that I go with the Commanders. The Rams are they're not the most talented team, and I know Pittsburgh seems like a good matchup, but they don't really turn the ball over, and they just kind of like don't score points, and then they just end up kind of like matriculating points. I'm going for turnovers. I'm going for sacks, and turnovers and sacks I think are going to be in the Washington Commanders. When I'm looking at when I'm looking at defenses, I should mention this. Like, it's not like when you're looking at lines and you're like, oh, what defense is going to hold this team to the least amount of points? What I'm looking for is what defense has the more opportunity to sack the quarterback more and to turn the ball over more. And I think right now, especially with the absolutely abysmal New York Giants offensive line, I think that the Washington Commanders have more chance to get sacks and turnovers here. So I'm going with the Commanders.
I'm leaning that as well. I think that game could easily be higher scoring for both teams, but you're not getting that much of a home run play out of the Rams unless Kenny Pickett really screws up, um, which is entirely possible. But like you said, they play a very safe brand of football that, you know, when was their last fumble? Against the Ravens on a kickoff collision from his own teammate, and then, Gunnar Olszewski got cut from the team, essentially. Um, you know, I think Najee's pretty safe with the ball in his hands. I think Kenny Pickett is good for like a turnover or two, maybe. But I don't think the Rams have that much talent on defense right now to really do that with much projection.
All right, let's get to our next question. I hope that helped, Garrett. Mike Panozzo. Half PPR, Deontay Johnson or Jerry Jeudy. I'm going to say this right at the bat. I have no problem whatsoever going with Deontay Johnson right away. Get him back in your lineups. Now, you're the Steelers fan, Themi. You know all about the difference that Deontay Johnson can make on the on that team. I think that team is struggling to move the ball, and because they're struggling to move the ball, they're going to want. I think it's going to be a little bit of a revamped kind of situation after the bye week. I think we're going to see a little more Jaylen Warren mixed in, and I also think that we're going to see a lot of Deontay Johnson being featured. He's really the only guy on the team that can really separate at an elite level. George Pickens may have that big play potential, but even on his big plays, he's not really separating like that. Deontay Johnson is one of the best separators in the league, and when you want a guy in Pickett to probably get the ball off his hands fast, hit a bunch of slants and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts in 10 receptions in his first game back. Like, am I predicting that? No. But I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised. I have him as a playable receiver pretty high up in my rankings right now. I have Deontay Johnson at 29, just above George Pickens. Like, I would play him over George Pickens. And I have Jerry Jeudy at 37. Jerry Jeudy just hasn't been getting it done, and there's really no other way to put it. If you're playing Jerry Jeudy week after week, I think what your best hope is that he starts to get some trade interest, because his best week of the season this year was a 6-reception, 50-yard output against the Jets that made him wide receiver 29. Like, he has not been good by any stretch of the imagination. So, I'm definitely going Deontay Johnson. This is an easy one for me.
That's where I'm leaning as well. Pat Fryermuth is out, which is very, very big loss for the team. I mean, I believe he was at the last game as well, but now he's been placed on IR. Yeah. So post bye, they are going to have to try to do something different. I mean, we're probably going to see maybe a little more Darnell Washington, but he might still block. Might see a lot of Connor Hayward in the tight end slot, or getting carries or getting short work. But I think Deontay Johnson is going to keep that role and sort of maybe, get a lot more work in the kind of, medium spaces. George Pickens, great deep threat. And we know that he can go, medium down the middle and just kind of, take off with the ball. That's not, he's not exclusively a deep play. But I think Deontay Johnson in half PPR is probably a lot safer. And we've seen more out of him. Jerry Jeudy, like you said, having a really bad season. This is a pretty good bounce back spot for Jeudy, but I'd rather take a shot on Deontay Johnson, to be honest.
Let's see what the app says about this. I'm in the middle of putting it in right now. So I got Johnson and I got Jeudy, and we got, even the app, which takes out just our personal bias, like tries to make our personal bias less as possible. The app has Deontay Johnson as a 58% favorable start in half PPR, and if you go to PPR, I'd imagine that that gap gets even bigger to 65%. I'm gonna go Deontay Johnson here. Isaiah Simpson, DJ Moore, or Scary Terry, and then whichever you don't pick, that person or Drake London. You're gonna think I'm crazy, but I like Drake London out over both those guys this week. I think Drake London has been seeing a lot of action, and he's proven that he can make these insane catches and be part of the offense. I think that there's a little bit of bias being shown because he had such a bad week one that you don't realize that he's been much better as of late. So I like Drake London over both of these guys. I would normally go DJ Moore and Drake London, but DJ Moore has Tyson Badgett as his quarterback in only his first full game. That's a scary one. Although he did hyper target DJ Moore in when he did come in. That's a scary one. I'm going London. While I mull that over and while I also check on the app, how are you feeling about this matchup? Are you agreeing with me about London, or are you going somewhere else?
I'm also very big on London. I believe he's like the wide receiver 16 and half PPR after week one. Just had a big game. Obviously, gonna really rely on touchdowns to keep that high scoring going. But between these three guys, I think London is pretty much an auto start. I think I'm gonna go DJ Moore over Terry just barely.
The app has it at exactly 50-50 in full PPR. The exact same. Oh my goodness. And the matchups are almost in terms of matchup rankings, they're very comparable as well. Against Vegas and the Giants, they've been very comparable defenses against the wide receivers.
Yeah, I'd rather take a guy like DJ Moore, even with a quote unquote quarterback downgrade, with a D2 quarterback throwing to him. Like you said, hyper targeted. I think even in his worst games, he'll be about at some of Terry's best this season, and I think that's going to continue this week.
Mike says, "Thank you, boys. You're welcome, Mike. As always, we hope we're helping you take home some W's. All right, let's go into Chris W. Already got him. All right, John DePinto. Hey, another Paisan. Devonta Smith, Drake London, or Jacoby Myers, half PPR. Let me not waste your time here. I think Jacoby Myers is a must play at this point. He's a wide receiver 1. He's been ranked a wide receiver 1. I know Devonta Smith is very tempting. And you never know when you're going to get a huge game of this guy. So I would find a way to try to start Devonta Smith always. I'm never going to be in the camp of sit Devonta Smith. Look, we mentioned the heat wave before. In the heat wave, not to say I told you so or that I warned you guys, but when you pick a guy like Devonta Smith, a guy like T. Higgins, a guy like Jalen Waddle, these are guys that you're drafting to be wide receiver 1s in your leagues, but are not even wide receiver 1s on their team, which causes them to miss big time because they could just fall out of the game plan for these teams sometimes. And I don't like having that on my team because it's so volatile. So a guy like Devonta Smith, he can, you want to say that he's not a good play and you should go with a guy like Jacoby Myers, but knowing that he can put up, 30 points in a really good matchup against Miami, it makes you want to start him, even though it should be Jacoby Myers in theory because he's been the guy and he's playing Chicago and that's another good matchup. How do you sit Devonta Smith against Miami? I don't think you can do it. Is there another way to get him in there? Like, I think the sit is Drake London here, but I think
it's only pick one, right?
Huh?
You're only picking one, right?
Yeah, we got to pick one.
Oh, okay. So, I thought you were saying only sit Drake London. Okay.
Well, you got to sit Drake London in my opinion.
Okay.
In this matchup. So, but this is gonna be Devonta Smith versus Jacoby Myers. Right now, I have Devonta Smith higher in my rankings just because. But the rankings aren't the end all be all. Like, do you need a blow up or do you need a floor? Maybe go with that. Maybe go Devonta Smith if you need a blow up, and Jacoby Myers if you need a floor because that Miami matchup is also just so tasty.
Yeah, the Dolphins' defense is really, really bad compared to how their offense is. They let up a lot of points. But Devonta Smith, I wouldn't be that shocked to see him go for 200 yards. I wouldn't be that shocked to see him go for 2 catches for 30 yards. That's the issue.
That's the issue with Devonta, man.
But it is one of the highest. I think I mistakenly said that the Chiefs game was the highest scoring in terms of point total. I was thinking of the Dolphins-Eagles game where it's 52.5 points, on Sunday night. I could not live with myself benching Devonta Smith in this matchup. That's the way I see it. I know Jacoby Myers, incredible. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback because he catches touchdowns. He just gets big gains. He's just open. With Devontae Adams, next to him, Jacoby Myers can feast. I could not live with myself letting Devontae Smith put up 40 points on the bench.
Yeah, man. I mean, and it's Myers has played 5 weeks this season. He's been wide receiver 14 or better 3 out of the 5 weeks. He's been a playable wide receiver 24 or better 4 out of those 5 weeks. The only week that he didn't do much was against the Chargers, where the entire offense didn't really do much. And man, it's a tough one, but I think I'm gonna go with Devontae Smith because also you got to remember Brian Hoyer's in. So I'm going to go with that quarterback difference, and I'm gonna go with Devontae Smith and cross my fingers and pray that this is one of those games where he blows up for 35 points, because it has the makings of that. Last week against the Jets, I'm a Jets fan. I watched that game very closely. He let one drop off his fingers that had the potential to be like a 70-yard touchdown, that he just flat out dropped. He was open. He had green space in front of him, and he flat out dropped it. So if that happens, then you're looking at Devontae Smith in a whole new light this week. All right, let's go to the next one. Joshua Dobbs, Russell Wilson, or Tyrod Taylor? Alejandro, good morning, my brother. Let's have a great day. Yes, I agree. So he's got the first question. So he got 2 in a row. And then the second one is full PPR star one, JSN Downs versus Cleveland, Judy or Jeff Wilson. So let's get into. Oh, I keep putting that out. I don't know why I keep getting that one. I don't know. Joshua Dobbs, Russell Wilson, or Tyrod. Right now, if I go to my rankings, I do believe that I have Josh Dobbs as the highest ranked out of those guys. No, I don't. I have Joshua Dobbs at 16. I have Russell Wilson at 11. I like the Russell Wilson Green Bay matchup. I think there's an opportunity there, but I'm not gonna lie, man. My heart says Joshua Dobbs. I mentioned that Joshua Dobbs is my deep streamer of the week on the Patreon pod this week. If you're not already subscribed, make sure that you go to patreon.com/BroToFantasy. I'll leave that one on the bottom there for a minute. For as little as $3 a month, you can we'll discuss your start sit, not just in this setting, but also in the setting of really getting a deep dive, looking into it, and giving you our advice. So with that being said, where were we again? It was Russell Wilson, Josh Dobbs, and then
I think Tyrod's an easy sit right there.
Yeah, Tyrod's an easy sit, although it's not the best matchup. I mean, there's another one with my rankings. My analytical mind is telling me Russell Wilson versus Green Bay. Russell Wilson has been good, but I think Joshua Dobbs at Seattle, if we're looking at points over average for Seattle, let's go to that matchup real quick. We see that Seattle has been they're the 7th best matchup for quarterbacks. The only problem is they haven't been great. They've been great against the rushing quarterback, and that's what really separated this, because Josh Dobbs on the low, one of the better rushing quarterbacks in the league, 5th amongst quarterbacks in rushing yards and rushing attempts. So 27% over average for 23% below average. That's the 25th ranked matchup for running quarterback. So that's why I give the slight edge to Russell Wilson. But if you want to go with your heart, man, I totally get that.
I'm going to go Russell Wilson here. I think both are quality starts. Obviously, Dobbs gets the better matchup and better game script in terms of what we're projecting. But man, Russell Wilson has been great for fantasy, with the exception of maybe a couple weeks, and I think his ceiling is much better also.
Full PPR start. JSN Downs versus Cleveland, Judy or Jeff Wilson. I think, to me, again, this is an easy one. Maybe not easy, but I think that when you got a guy who's been getting peppered with targets like Josh Downs has been by Gardner Minshew in a full PPR setting, I think you have to take him over the guys who are not going to get those looks. I think Jerry Jeudy hasn't gotten the looks. Jeff Wilson, you don't know what his role is. The only guys I would consider over Downs is JSN at that point, but I think JSN. You're going to go with JSN again. Is that really what you're going to do? You're going to take a chance on JSN again? I'm going to wait and see with JSN. So I think my answer here is Downs versus Cleveland.
It's a really tough spot for Downs against what is probably the best defense in the league right now.
I think that actually plays in his favor, because I think they're going to want to get the ball out quick, and Josh Downs is that get the ball out quick guy on that offense.
Yeah.
I want him to, if he catches 7 balls for 62 yards, I think that's what you're looking at. And I think that that's going to be the best output of any of these guys. Like I don't think you're looking at
I think that's
stud
asking a
performance
lot.
here.
For me, that's asking a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, I
I
think
get that.
Brandon Ayuk had a very good game against Cleveland last week, regardless.
Especially in the last drive where everyone was shitting on Brock Purdy, bro, but Brock Purdy did his job. He, with less than 2 minutes left, drove the team down the field and got them in field goal range. Just the kicker missed it.
Yeah,
It's a whole different narrative around Brock Purdy in the media this week if
yeah.
that kick goes in.
It was a very good drive, considering the rest of the game was pretty awful for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jeff Wilson, I'm definitely not starting, especially in full PPR. And then it's like, okay, do you want to bank on Jerry Judy in a game where I kind of like the Broncos a lot as a passing team, but Judy's production has just been disgusting, man. And then it's, do you want to trust JSN? Yeah, okay. I think by process of elimination, Downs might be the guy here.
Just because, like,
It
like
feels
again,
so
like
awful. Ugh.
sometimes in these matchups, it just comes down to who's going to get the volume. Like Josh Downs, 8 targets last week. That's a 15% target share. The week before, he had 6 targets. That was a 23% target share. The week before that, he only had 3 targets, but the leading target getter on the team that week was Michael Pittman, and he only had 5. So that's still worth 12% of the targets. The week before that with Gardner Minshew, 27% of the targets, 12 targets. I mean, you can't when you're looking at guys like this, you can't pass up a guy who's plays 75% of the snaps. He gets 19% of the targets on the team. That's going to need to pass the ball. I think, especially in a PPR setting, I think that's where I'm going. All right, Alejandro, let's have a great day. Big Will, good morning, good afternoon. How you doing? Is it afternoon already? Not quite yet. Remember, this is supposed to go to 12, but the crunch time guarantee is we're going to get to every question. So if you have those questions, keep them coming. Isaiah Simpson says Purdy or Deshaun. I'm going with Purdy in this one. I can't trust Deshaun Watson in general, and I'm definitely not trusting him in the first game with a bad shoulder.
Yep. His best game was against the Titans, and he wasn't even that good against their awful pass defense. Purdy.
Let's go with Big Will. Half PPR. It's a gross one. Sutton, Josh Downs, Michael Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Jameson Williams. Half PPR. Pick 3. Whoa, Will, what's going on, man? All right. Sutton, Josh Downs, Michael Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Jameson Williams. So we touched on Sutton and we touched on Josh Downs. And I think based on what we said, we can assume that both of us like those two over the rest of the field here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then that leaves us with Michael Wilson versus Elijah Moore versus Jameson Williams. You're going to call me crazy. Michael mentioned it on the pod. I think Michael Wilson is the play here. I know that he has been up and down, and he's a rookie, and he hasn't been consistent, but we mentioned such the great matchup against Seattle, third in true matchup rankings. Elijah Moore, this team has tried to get Elijah Moore involved so hard. Like, they are running special plays for him. They're running screens for him. They're running plays to get him open. It's time to just kind of consider that Elijah Moore sucks. I know that everyone was like, oh, my God, Elijah Moore. It's time to consider Elijah Moore sucks. And I don't want Elijah. He's the last option on this team for me. Like Elijah Moore's game logs, if you go to them, just to see what he's put up, just to see what he's had. He's been bad, and he's been shockingly so. Like, he has nothing but red in his Brodo. His best finish has been wide receiver 37 when he got 9 targets in a game against Tennessee and got 49 yards. And he still fumbled in that game. So, I mean, it's time to think that this guy who cannot keep his mouth shut and it thinks he's God's gift to earth isn't. So I think that you get Elijah Moore and you just kick him. He's droppable in my opinion. And then you got the idea. So here's why I would consider Jameson Williams over Michael Wilson. Because bottom line is, if you're starting Sutton, Josh Downs, and one of these guys, you need a big-time performance to win this matchup. And I think if you're banking on a big-time performance, Jameson Williams has that big home run opportunity. So Sutton, Downs, and the logical process of who's going to be the better player most likely is Michael Wilson. But I need a big play. I need a home run. Jameson Williams is the guy there. So I'd go Sutton, Downs, grab my nuts and say Jameson Williams. What are you thinking?
This is like the Elijah Moore hate podcast.
Look. I'm obviously biased because I'm a Jet fan, But I wanted Elijah Moore to be better, be good more than everyone. And he just isn't. He wasn't. He went through a period of time where he got really good production against really bad teams and games that didn't really matter. And everyone kind of lost their mind. And since then, he hasn't been able to do squat.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that game where he caught all 9 of his targets and still only had about 50 yards was
Yeah.
that basically spelled the end of it because his production with Deshaun Watson is absolutely terrible. I will go Michael Wilson over Jameson Williams. I do think that they're both kind of big play guys. Obviously, Williams is probably more in line for a touchdown than Michael Wilson. However, Michael Wilson gets a ton of targets. Obviously, not all of those are converted into catches, but the ones that are very big plays, sort of like a Marvin Mims, but with more volume, more snaps, more routes run. And in a game where we expect the Cardinals to be playing catch up all day against a really bad defense, that might be slightly improving as the weeks go on. I think Michael Wilson is my third there, along with Sutton and Josh Downs, but I understand the logic on Jameson. I just think Michael Wilson offers a big home run hit minus the touchdowns, but on more volume.
All right. So, I mean, this is something that needs to be mentioned by Alejandro. So, DK is a game time decision, might not play because of his ribs. That news dropped about 6 hours ago, so definitely something to be mentioned. And JSN is getting better. He is a first round pick. There is a chance. There's a chance that they got some O-line guys back. Okay, I'm still not going with Jameson JSN there, but there is. Woo, excuse
Bless
me.
you.
Those factors. Thank you. All right, Mike. Thanks, boys. Keep up the great work. No problem. Trey, yo. Joe says, question. Good morning. Craig Reynolds or Rashee Rice full PPR? I'm going with Rashee Rice here. That's an easy one for me. I know Craig Reynolds might have an opportunity, but last time we saw this exact scenario, it was not Craig Reynolds' backfield. It was Jahmyr Gibbs' backfield. I assume it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs again with some Craig Reynolds mixed in. I'm not playing Craig Reynolds in this game, and I think Rashee Rice, he has the opportunity to hit the big play, so I'm going to go with Rashee Rice.
I think that's where I'm leaning as well.
Should I start Rice over Pittman this week? Says Trey. No, I'm starting Michael Pittman, especially with Gardner Minshew, who has been hyper targeting him. Tom, you agree, Themi? Just to put that out there.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, Stan, always here. No start sit questions today, but hope you guys have it all. Yeah, you too, Tom Brady, Stan. Whatever your real name is, we love you. Even if your mom named you Tom Brady Stan Goat, we still love you. All right, Benjamin, 16 team half PPR. Who you playing? Jonnu Smith, Darrell Henderson, Latavius Murray, or OBJ? Oof, this one's a tough one, deeper. In a situation like this, I would not be scared to start Darrell Henderson. I have Darrell Henderson right under Latavius Murray in my rankings. So if I need a floor, I'm going Lat Murray. I wouldn't be scared really. I think Darrell Henderson does have some upside. So he has the more upside, but I think there's also something to be said about Jonnu Smith, who has been a very productive player. I just don't like to put.
It's an awful matchup. That's the big thing.
And I
whereas
the
wide receivers can do pretty good. Yeah, Tampa Bay's 26th in true matchup rank. 23%, negative 23% points over average, or I guess points under average at this point.
Yep.
I think you trust one of those running backs. OBJ just hasn't been having that great of a season. He might be good for a couple of catches, but like in half PPR, I'd rather just take a shot on one of these running backs. And I think Latavius Murray is more in line for volume and probably upside.
All right, let's get to Maverick Waterman here. Need 2 full point PPR. Rice, Godwin, Flowers. To me, that's an easy Godwin and Flowers. Yep. I think those guys are way more. Rice has even yet to see 50% of the snaps on the field. Although, like I just said, good things about Rice in this matchup, I think it's Godwin and Flowers.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
John DePinto says, not a start sit, but it is time to panic on Calvin Ridley with Kirk's production and also his outlook rest of the season. Yeah, I mean, I think that time has been passed. I think that it's clear that this offense is not only more capable when they run through Travis Etienne and Christian Kirk, it's just a better offense overall. They're just a more capable offense. Do I think that means that Calvin Ridley is washed? No, I don't mean that. But the Calvin Ridley you drafted in the third round, that might be a pipe dream at this point.
It's unfortunate. He still gets a pretty decent amount of targets, but there's some games like what 2 3 days ago, it was just disappointing, man. It's really sucks after that first week one, blow up game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not telling you that there's not a possibility that Calvin Ridley takes over that position, but I do think that maybe we didn't properly consider how much taking 2 years off of the game affects you. So there's an opportunity for him to grow in this offense. So don't get me wrong, we're not giving up on Calvin Ridley, but it might be a pipe dream to expect getting that wide receiver one in the third round that people were getting during draft season. All right, let's continue. Fabian says, good morning, Fabian. Good afternoon, I should say. We are past 12:05 now, but we're going to get to everything. If you have any last-minute questions, get them in there. Lamar or Jared Goff? I think, to me, this is an easy one. Lamar Jackson, I know Detroit's been good, but I am definitely playing him because Jared Goff's splits are very easy to read. When he's at home, he's a great play. When he's on the road, he's not such a great play. And he is on the road. Just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, at Kansas City, QB 18. At home versus Seattle, QB 8. At Green Bay, QB 21. At home versus Carolina, QB 3. Now, he did play really good on the road against Tampa Bay last week. So he was QB 3 on the road. So, it's not always guaranteed. But when you got a guy like Lamar Jackson, I don't think that you sit him for Jared Goff.
Yeah, and these Detroit corners are, very exploitable. I think Lamar can beat them on both sides of the ball. It should still be a close game, but I'd rather start Lamar this week.
Yeah, that's just to see what he's facing. The Lions' true matchup rank against quarterbacks is they're the 10th best matchup in the league, and that includes 49% over average rushing to the quarterback. So there's really no reason to shy away from Lamar Jackson in an at least neutral matchup against the Lions. Fabian has another one. Who would you start here? Drake London, KJ Osborne, or Darrell Henderson? I think that's another easy one for me. I love the usage that Drake London has been getting recently, and I'm going to stick with Drake London.
Yep, give me Drake London too.
We got two more. Remember, get those in if you need them. AJ Dillon or Foreman, full PPR. I will tell you this right now. I'm in 8 leagues. In 3 of those 8 leagues, AJ Dillon was dropped this week ahead of his matchup with one of the easiest rushing defenses ever. So I think it really gives you an idea of how people are feeling about AJ Dillon, and I feel the same. I'm going to go with the guaranteed volume with Foreman, even though I think this is an easy one for me. I think it's Foreman. But I see where you're coming from. AJ Dillon has a great matchup. He's had great matchups this year, and he hasn't done anything with them. So I'm going to go with Foreman.
Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, last week he had a great matchup too. He had a nice rushing performance, but it wasn't enough to really do anything for your fantasy team.
I think that's what it is with AJ Dillon. Like he's gonna get his 14 rushes for 62 yards or whatever, or maybe less than that, maybe like 10 for 38. And if you don't get a touchdown, you're gonna be really disappointed. And that's just the AJ Dillon way. And it's been no touchdowns. If I'm not mistaken, he has no touchdowns this year, right?
I can't imagine he does.
Let's see. I mean, so it's let's move on to the next question.
He has. All right. He did get one last week.
One. Oh, so he had a touchdown last week.
20 carries, 76 yards.
So I guess a decent production with the touchdown last week, but it's still not something that I'm writing. Last one: Ramondre Stevenson or Jerome Ford as RB2 in full PPR. Right now in my rankings, when I go to it, I have them really close to each other. I have Jerome Ford. Oh, right back to back. I have Jerome Ford 15, Ramondre Stevenson 16. I'm going to the app.
I'm liking Ford a lot more this week. I'm starting to be higher on him. Ramondre Stevenson, man, I refuse to trust him. And he was a great player last year. Still a great talent, but things just not going his way. Zeke, I think, getting far too many touches in this backfield, sort of like how Dalvin Cook is on the Jets, where he kind of just runs into a wall. Zeke looks like he has better kind of per touch performances. But still, man, it's not looking good.
The app very, very, very slightly leaning 52.5% towards Ramondre Stevenson in this matchup. Although
Okay.
Indy is the better matchup, according to True Matchup Ranking. I guess I slightly lean Ramondre. This is a tough decision. This is a tough one. I have them ranked back to back. I guess my ranking says forward slightly, so I'm gonna go forward slightly. Slightly better matchup. All right, I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate what y'all do. We appreciate you for tuning in. Fabian, as always, everyone, we hope you have an amazing, amazing Sunday. And one last thing before we go, it is the birthday of the twins. October 22nd. They are 28 now, which is fucking crazy.
They're old men.
Can't believe my little brothers are 28, maybe 27. Maybe I got that wrong. It's either 27 or 28. They're born in 95. So quick math.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
24, and I was 99.
Yeah. So 28.
Yeah, they must be.
Yeah. So, damn, you guys are old now. Don't tell them. I hope they're not listening. But I got them a Sauce. I got Jason a Sauce Gardner jersey shirt, and I got Michael a Michael Wilson. I mean, Jeff Wilson.
I
mean, not Jeff or Michael. Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. I was going to say Michael Wilson would be a funny little.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't even say Michael on the back.
All right. Yeah, they're actually at a game right now. They're 28. Thanks, Fabian. Chris, we will make sure to let them know, and Fabian just checking our math. But yeah, they're actually at a football game right now, playing in the football game. Yeah, I hurt my ankle before the season, so I had to drop off the team this year. It was really bad, but I'm looking forward to next season. They replaced me with a guy that's pretty good, I think so. At least everyone that. So anyway, Goonie football. That's what we call ourselves, the Goonies. The Looney Goons, actually. Goonie football in play. NFL football in play. Steelers mugs being drank. That's it for us. Crunch time guarantee has been fulfilled. It is time for us to go do our own lineups now. For Themi, I'm your host, Tim. Actually, I'm not gonna say for Themi. You want to say goodbye to the people?
Guys, it was a pleasure being on here. I hope everyone does good in their leagues. Have a great fucking day.
That's it. And also, just don't forget, Themi has Broto bets, and last year he hit on 78% of his teasers. So go check that out.
Yeah,
because
they're doing good. They're about 80% right now.
Woo! I got to change the graphic.
Well, don't do that yet.